What's up, world? It's your boy, Mike Muse, for the Conversations of the Mike Muse Show. I am so excited to be in conversation with my next guest. He is a returning guest to the Mike Muse Show. I had the pleasure of being in conversation with him for the show Archie.
What the hell were we talking about? Oh, yes,
Archie, yeah, for Cary Grant. And every time I think about Jason Isaacs, I actually don't think about White Lotus. I actually think about BritBox.
Oh,
because I had
I'm
never
sure
heard.
they're gonna love that. Oh my God,
I had never heard, bro. I had never heard of BritBox until I had the chance to interview the first time, and I had a chance to watch Archie, which I absolutely loved. And so now every time I see commercials or things about BritBox, you come to my mind very regularly. Can you imagine, Jason? You come to my mind.
There's a tie-up, not to be cheesy segue guy, but there's a tie-up because when I was here promoting that, I got the call to audition for White Lotus, and I don't not because I'm above it. People don't ask me to audition, so I went okay, and I got quite nervous because you got to put yourself on tape and stuff. And I walked to the casting director's office, which is just off Times Square, and I went past these giant billboards that had my face on them for Archie. And the irony being, people would think, oh, look at that guy, he's, famous actor, got it made. No, I went into an office just off there. I'm 100 foot high outside, and I bumbled and stumbled on the camera and got flushed and blushed and left the room thinking I didn't get the job.
Oh wow! And you ultimately got the job.
I did. I guess I was cheaper than the other actors.
No, I wouldn't say that. You're probably more expensive than the other ones. The
budget, we all got the same money.
The budget had to go up.
Everybody got exactly the same money.
For this one, but much. But yeah, it's so funny, man. I can't wait to have you back on BritBox, and I'll watch BritBox again. I haven't watched BritBox again since you.
Are they sponsoring you? Mike?
No, I'm just saying. Like I haven't even watched it since then, right?
No. They better give you a free subscription. Hey, BritBox people, Mr. BritBox, that's your name, isn't it? Mike gets a free subscription. Surely 3 mentions now.
Well, only when you get Jason Isaacs in another show or film.
Oh, fine. I'm up for it.
There's contingencies.
The guy who wrote that, Jeff Pope, has become a good friend of mine, and we are hoping to do many things together. He's a fabulous writer.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Jason Isaacs, man, your vibes. You came in with so much energy. I didn't
you're playing
peg you.
funky music. I walked into a nightclub here. The audience might not realize that, but every time you're not on the air, this place is hopping in here.
Yeah.
Fabulous.
Are you a club guy?
Golf club, maybe. No, tennis club, actually. No. Clubbing, for me, was a place you go when you're looking to hook up with people. And I've been with my wife for 37 years, so that's the last time we went to a club.
Jason, do you have to go to a club to hook up with people?
I don't have to go anywhere.
I mean, not anymore, but when you were going to club, you didn't go to dance.
I was never any good at chatting anybody up or talking to anybody or any, finding anybody. I needed to wait until someone not only told me, their friend had to tell me they liked me, then they had to tell me they liked me, and then there had to be like 6 missed opportunities before they then pinned me down. Are you a shy guy? Yeah. Well, I don't know what I am because I've been with my wife for 37 years. I have no idea who I hope I never have to find out what kind of single person I am.
Well, I never want you to be saying I was going to be your wife forever, but I'm talking about in general, do you find yourself like a shy person when you're just in social situations?
Okay, let's get very serious. All of a sudden, I don't know what I am or who I am. And it's an odd question because the last 8 weeks I've been talking about myself and the show a lot. And some of these interviews and radio stations and podcasts want to go quite deep. They want to turn into a therapy session because then they get some exclusive content. They're hoping you're going to cry. And I talk about myself. My wife used to make documentaries. She's a novelist now. She's made documentaries. And she would say people find themselves endlessly fascinating, infinitely fascinating. And I can talk about myself, and I can certainly, I'm asked, what's it like working with? And then fill in the blank, famous person. And I might give an answer, but the truth is no one can be summed up. And I'm not constant day to day. And some days I'm crippled with shyness. Very often I think I'm faking it for the whole world, and I feel like a real imposter. And then sometimes I get a bit puffed up my own importance. I'm a whole bunch of different things. I think we all are.
Yeah, I think we're always evolving. I'm not looking for any exclusive content. If you cry, it's on your own. Not because I want you to cry.
When I was a kid, there's a very famous film reviewer in England called Mark Kermode, a brilliant reviewer. He wrote an autobiography, and we were at school together. And he had this memory of me that bore no resemblance to how I see myself. I was very insecure when I was young. I still can be, depending on what company I'm in. And I faked being confident because I didn't have many friends at school, and I just wanted to, put up a defensive wall. And he remembers this enormously confident, slightly obnoxious kid. And it was so interesting to me reading someone else's picture of who they thought I was and who I was. Maybe that's why I'm an actor.
Maybe. I was just having a conversation with a good friend of mine named Dan, and so he revealed to me recently that he has a lot of anxiety and that he's shy, and I was kind of surprised by that.
Right.
But I told him, as somebody who is such an extrovert, like I've been like this my entire life. Like
really?
I'm always drawn to the quiet person in the room.
Right.
I'm always, if we're having a dinner, like a group of people, I'm always thinking about what is a person who isn't saying anything? Yeah. What are they thinking? Right? Are they not happy? Are they not enjoying?
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. No. So that's because I don't know you well enough, but there's something in you obviously compassionate and empathetic and wonders what other people are doing. But what about yourself? Do you lie there at night when you've finished reading the book, whatever you're doing, or looking at your phone, you switch the light off, between those moments, that and sleep, do you think over things you've done and said, worry about you've done and said the wrong thing, or wish you'd done things differently, or worry whether you've spent your day well, or are you happy with yourself? Are you happy with who you are?
I do that all the time, actually. Funny enough, it just happened. In between waiting for you to come into the studio, I went to the bathroom, and prior to that, I had a challenging conversation.
Right.
And actually went back into another studio just to kind of clear the air and correct the record, because I didn't want this lingering of something I might have misspoken, and there's a misunderstanding. And so I actually
That's
wrestle.
Good. You actually deal with stuff.
I like to do conflict resolutions in the moment if I can. I don't like for it to linger too often, because I think if you allow conflict to linger too often, it becomes into a much more of a bigger issue and dynamic. Yeah.
No, well, that's really evolved of you. It's a skill I hope I am getting better as I get older. I mean, the game's going to be up soon, but I continue trying to learn. In a horrible, even cheesier segue than before, I bring that back to the White Lotus. Am I promoting it? It's over and everybody watched it in the world anyway. But anyway, the guy I'm playing spent not a single second of self-reflection until they arrived in Thailand, and had no interest in it. People go to Thailand for spiritual enlightenment or growth, and the rich people go there to maybe rent it for an hour at a time while they watch Thai boxing and have fabulous food. But he, ironically, of all the people who wanted it least of all, is the man who is brought most face to face with his essential self. And funny enough, lots of the interviews they ask, did you get any spiritual enlightenment? What did you get? Do you consider those things? Well, those are things maybe as an actor I've never stopped thinking about. I don't know if I learn anything or grow, but those are the reasons I think I am an actor, to delve into, ask questions like I asked you then, and delve them, who am I if I walk in the shoes of someone who is never reflecting, or is always reflecting, or is full of hatred, or is full of power and privilege, and what's it like to be all these other people, because I'm not quite sure what it's like to be me or how I'm meant to be.
So since you're kind of finding yourself in multiple different characters, do these characters, not just White Lotus, but previous characters, do they stay with you? Because I've always thought there was a disassociation. Yeah,
I think they are fully with me as much as I can allow them in. I try and keep myself an open vessel, and it's challenging sometimes. I mean, this part was very, very difficult to play, to take myself to places, to be suicidal and to be homicidal and to think that life is over, and to get to that place. But I don't know that they stay with me, because I try and keep myself when a kid falls over and they start to cry, and they really fully, every cell of their body is crying. It's the worst thing that's ever happened to them in their life. And then you go, do you want an ice cream? And they go, oh, it's not because they were pretending to cry. It's because they can be that flexible. I try and stay. I think that's what acting is, to be childlike and to allow these things to completely inhabit you, and then allow them to flow away from you. And they stay in your cell, I think. I mean, your cells in your body keep anger and trauma and stuff. So if I'm angry all day, or if I'm violent all day, maybe there's something in my cells, but I've been around long enough to recognize that that's unhealthy, to let it go, to breathe. And also, my wife would have changed the locks 40 years ago if I kept brought any of that home.
You remind me of that quote in audience. I always talk to my audience from the perspective of just who may not be actors interested in acting, but just live their day-to-day lives. What Jason just reminded me of is that dynamic of, like, friends come and go in your life for seasons and for reasons, and seasons can be short-term or it can be long-term, right? But I think there's people come in your life and they leave a mark on you, right? And particularly if you're an empath, right? And particularly if you're open to it, right? And even if you're not friends with them any longer, you don't see them anymore. Even in my personal relationships, I've taken things away from my friendships that I've had in terms of how they shape me, even just a perspective.
They say that you are, I don't know who they are, the people who need to be listened to. They say you are the aggregate of the 5 people you spend the most time with. Well, that depends, like you said, if you are open to other people having an effect on you. So choose your friends and choose your circles wisely. And certainly if you're around people that you love or respect and like and admire, and if they make you feel good, because a lot of us spend time around people that actually don't make us feel good, and don't stop to take the time to go, I always feel worse when I'm with that person. I've known them a long time, but if you choose wisely and you're lucky that you allow yourself to be influenced, and that's why I often end up sounding like my friends, because I have this terrible social disease, which thank God I've slightly monetized, which is I start talking like people. I pick up their accents often, and I pick up their speech rhythms as well, and my kids are often in the back of a taxi with me going, Dad, what are you doing? You're not Irish.
Yes.
And luckily it's a skill. I love accents and I love doing people's voices and stuff. And that's the place I start when I play characters. Like, how do they talk? Because I think you can hear so much from people about not just where they come from, geographically and financially and socioeconomically and stuff, but also their levels of confidence and whether they, you're a very giving person in conversation. So if I look like I'm about to speak, you'll fade out your sentence. Other people go, no, I will finish. And I will say my last word, regardless of the fact you started speaking. I can tell your levels of empathy from how you converse. And so I think you really have to choose your friends wisely.
Audience, I'm cracking up, and Jason, you probably saw me to react the way that you did. I've never heard anybody say that out loud because I do the same thing. And if I can be a little bit vulnerable right here, I've always, speaking of thinking about my interactions later on that afternoon or evening, I'm always wondering, am I coming off as racist, insensitive? Because I will begin to mimic the accent that is in front of me or the demeanor of the person.
Racism go the other way around.
Right, yeah. But meaning
if you start doing white people's voices, no one's going to mind. I start going into Jamaican patois. I remember being offered.
That's what I'm saying, Jason. I was like, Mike, what are you doing? Right? Thank God your daughter, your children are there to catch you. No one's there to say, Mike, what are you doing? Right? I can't believe I'm saying this out loud, but I'd like to work up this exercise.
Sure, let's go through it.
If you don't mind.
I've had it a lot. I was a pro skateboarder when I was 14 and 15. I was one of the only white kids. Thank God no one was recording what I sounded like because I'm pretty sure I sounded like Ali G. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
But Jason, wow. I hope I don't get canceled, but since I've been, if I'm honest with myself, because you open the door, like when I am around all my white friends, I do see myself going up in an octave sometimes.
Right.
I do elongate my phrases in my sentences, and the word like comes up a lot.
Sure, yeah. No.
and yet...
But it's also...
This is hilarious. I cannot believe I'm doing this. I hate myself for answering this. I hate you for bringing this out of me.
When I watch interviews sometimes, I go, oh my God, I've got this horrible mid-Atlantic sound. It's because I've been in America for a while. And because if I say I'd like water in a restaurant, they go, oh, you want water? Yeah. Like I've, somehow had a stroke in front of them. And so if you're a certain kind of person, you subconsciously adapt. And I think that's perfectly normal and reasonable. I went to university. Also, if you're uncomfortable, I don't know if you do it for the same reason, but I went to university and I'm a working class boy who was had a northern accent, a Liverpool accent, then I had a London accent, and I went there and they were all very, very well-to-do, double-barreled names. They had country houses. They sounded like the royal family, and within a few days, I sounded like that too. Because and it wasn't because I was doing it deliberately, because I didn't want to stick out. And I want to be self-conscious about where I came from or how vulgar I was compared to what I saw then as their class. I saw them as better than me in many ways, and so it's a natural adaptation. When it comes to race, though, I've had a couple of sticky situations. I remember when they were redoing all of the audiobooks for James Bond, and I was offered Live and Let Die, which is one of my favorite books. And I remember the movies, and I read it, and it's full of jive talk. And I remember phoning and saying, I don't think I can do this accent. And they went, well, we'll get you a dialect coach. And I went, no, I don't mean I don't think I can do the accent. I don't think I should be doing the accent. It doesn't seem appropriate. And the other thing that comes to mind is I have done in my life, and I hope to continue doing, I love doing it, audiobooks. I've recorded lots of audiobooks. And it's fun because there's lots of different characters. I like doing different characters. And at one point when I was in LA, and I don't read the book before I go. It's part of the fun of discovery, and there's normally a producer who talks you through it. This time there wasn't. It was a book written by an ex-British diplomat, a spying book. That's exciting. I got there, and it turns out the book was set in Beijing. And lots of the characters were Chinese people speaking to him. So I'm like, okay. And I did my best Chinese people. I got to like chapter 6. He said, that spy sounds a lot like the man who... I go, I don't have that many Chinese voices. They're all sounding like my Jackie Chan impression, which I'll be told never to do again. And so, it's a rather dangerous tightrope. A kind of, it's a Squid Game tightrope. You're going to fall off onto spikes. Yeah. And so I best avoid... In fact, when I did... Sometimes this will be the end of the story in a minute.
No, it's fine.
I'm one of the voices in Avatar, The Last Airbender, that very popular animated TV series. I play Zhao. And when I got there, I was told I booked for an animated series. I drive up in Burbank to some nondescript studio. And I go in. There's multiple studios. I walk into the one I think it's... But I look around me and I go, And I go, is this Avatar? And they go, yeah. And I go, sorry, who's in charge? Guy comes forward. I go, can we just have a quick word? We go outside and I go, so I'm the only non-Asian American actor. He goes, yeah. And I go, you're not expecting me to do like a Asian American voice, are you? And he goes, I mean, maybe just a hint. And I go, no, I don't think... I'm not sure that's going to fly. I didn't. And it was fun. But,
I need to add acting to my bio because you have an excuse for doing these mimicking behavior.
That's
I
right.
have no excuse.
Thank God I found it, because what a terrible social disease it is.
Literally. Yeah. But I do feel like this is therapy, and I'm going to move on. But I do think this is. But I've never had a conversation out loud about this. Right?
It's code switching. They have a phrase. It's code switching.
It bothers me that I do that often. And
for
me, my thing is,
when you're with white people making your voice.
Yeah.
You are more white
in
the room with them.
Yeah.
There is that part of you too that is that person that's with them.
Yeah.
No,
it is since we're here, it has informed me on social conversation and construct. And I remember when I first moved to New York City, by this point I'm well-traveled around the world, have a degree in engineering, nuclear chemical research.
You have a degree in engineering?
Yeah, nuclear chemical research and the whole nine.
You know, that's the most popular degree after business in the Fortune 500 CEOs. It's always engineering.
Yeah. I mean, I could understand why, because the critical analysis, critical thinking, and all that kind of fun stuff. So I remember being on the train, moving here, and I was heading uptown, and I was on the A train. And I'm with my black friend.
Of course you were.
Yeah, of course
you're an A-train kind of guy.
Yeah, exactly. So you already get where I'm going. I fucking love you, Jason, because you just get things, right? And so I'm on that train, I'm heading uptown, and there's this group of black people sitting across from me. And I turned to my friend who's a black guy. I said, yo, it's so dope. Every black person here speaks Spanish. And my friend's like, you dumbass. Those are Dominicans. Right. I'm like, well, what is a Dominican? Right? They look just like us, right? And then in that moment, Jason, I learned there's a difference from ignorance and racism, right? And it's a really fine line, right? And that has always informed me as I've gone throughout life, right, about the difference aspect of it, right? And so I think sometimes when mimicking an accent it's more being like empathetic and trying to be relatable, right? It's not to be harmful.
Not wanting your accent
to
for other people to make assumptions about who you are.
Yeah.
To be able to put you in a box and think they know something about you.
That's it.
Just because you speak a certain way.
That's it. Wow. I think that's kind of it.
Well, our 50 minutes is up now.
Yeah,
if you just pay the receptionist, it'll be fine.
It's been a pleasure, Jason. I mean, that is it, because you don't want to. Sometimes it's easy, I'm sure for you too as well, being a Brit coming into American rooms, there's like these perceived notions and stereotypes of you.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I mean, by the way, I benefit from it a lot in many ways. People think, for instance, because I can pronounce my T's, that I'm well read. I'm really badly read. I grew up just watching television. They think that I don't know, I'm better educated in all kinds of areas. I was out of it at school, ADHD or stoned or whatever, and I'm really, there's almost nothing between my ears. That's why I like playing other people smarter than me. And the other thing, I remember when I was here years ago doing lots of TV pilots, some casting director said to me, we don't make leading actors in America anymore. You've got to be English or Australian. And I thought, that's ludicrous. I see brilliant American actors all the time, but I will buy into that prejudice because it's really benefiting me. That's fine by me,
Yeah.
So, yeah, people do make assumptions about you being however you speak and however you are in the world. And, when it's to my benefit, I will play right into it.
As you should, right? That's a privilege, right?
Yeah.
Which is a whole other social construct,
but
right?
So one of the other things as well, apart from my own, our shared social disease, is that in Britain, when you open your mouth, everybody can tell from the first sentence, pass me the salt, they can tell where you're from socioeconomically, they can tell how you're striving to alter that to be perceived in a different way, they can tell where you're from geographically, obviously, in every way, what your education was. And so if you're a British actor, you better learn to use that tool to be able to do accents or place a voice somewhere, because it tells you so much about a person. So when I come and play Americans, it's always very, very specific to me. Now, American actors don't develop that tool in their toolbox. They don't need to. Yeah. All of Robert De Niro's brilliant chameleon-like characters could have grown up in the same building on the same street.
Yes.
And maybe not Cape Fear, but the rest of them. So it was funny doing this part because the guy I'm playing is from Durham, North Carolina, which is a very specific sound. And he's, in fact, a subsection of, he's old money, he's blue-blooded money, and he wants to sound like his grandfather, who was the governor and ancestors. So he holds on to some of those old colonial vowel sounds that you only hear in Durham. And it was entertaining and disturbing to see online all these people thinking I was getting the accent wrong because they've never heard that sound and they think everyone from the South sounds the same. And of course, people from Arkansas know they don't sound like people from Kentucky, who don't sound like people from Alabama. And they're all, for an Englishman coming in, I love the forensic nature of boiling down to a particular accent.
Yeah. It's so interesting, too, that you're talking about that, because even I always say here in America, and Black Americans specifically, we have our own migration tale, right?
Sure.
Like the Great
definitely
Northern
your own
Migration.
accents.
Yeah,
your
we
own
have our own
dialects
accents.
everywhere. Yeah.
Yep, accent, dialect, and slang. But like a black person in Michigan sounds completely different than a black person in D.C., right? And then D.C. blacks sound different from D.C. whites because a lot of D.C. blacks come from the South. And so the D.C. blacks migrate up north to D.C., so they kind of bring that Southern country drawl to them, but then like in this East Coast kind of mixture of dialect.
But then there's the other thing.
And there's a uniqueness to it. So no, to you.
There's the other thing that my black friends have. I noticed it more in my English friends before I came here and made friends here. But there's the two voices. There's the voice if you're college educated and you can sound different, and then there's dropping back into what in England is West Indian patois and stuff. But here it's dropping into just more of a black sound, just a different, not just vocabulary, but a different accent, and being able to code switch between the two depending on what circles you're mixing in, which white people don't do generally.
And I'm so you're so astute to bring that up, and it's because there's so many ranges of the black diaspora. Right. And so even blacks in the black diaspora want to sound quote unquote Americanized, right? For whatever that means, right? Sure. And so there's even like code switching even within the black community, right? In terms of how you sound. I think I'm kind of getting to your character in White Lotus in a really interesting way.
That's a very professional segue of you. Well done.
Yeah. No.
Thanks so much for that. You shoehorn it in any way you can. Go on then. I'll be impressed, but let's see your engineering degree. Pivot around this and get it back to White Lotus. Go on.
Here's what I've been thinking about, right? In this conversation, first of all, you're a phenomenal actor, and
that's very kind of you. I know it's not that I don't love a bit of praise. Can I just say it's phenomenal writing? It makes it much easier to do good acting when you've got great material.
Yes, but for me, it's the indirect acting, though. So yes, it's part of the writing and producers and directors and you playing with your fellow castmates, but in having interviewed so many directors in the past and understanding how film and television works, things are not shot sequentially.
Oh, God, no.
And what I was very...
If only. Wow.
Yeah. And we got to talk about that, why that doesn't happen. I still have yet to get the true answer on that one.
That's so easy. I can take 2 minutes aside. You're shooting all the scenes in a particular restaurant because you've booked that restaurant for a week. From episode 2, episode 8, episode 5, you're shooting the scenes on the boat where you arrive and when you leave on one day. You block shoot locations because you can't have them all open for 7 months.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense then.
And actors' availability sometimes, but not on this. We were all there for 7 months, so it's different.
But knowing the range that your character had, that I saw the evolution of the character.
It's a huge journey,
you hear the range, obviously, in the words and what you're communicating. But for me, what I was always drawn towards for you was like your facial expressions and your facial dynamics, right? And I think that your body language and your posture let me know where you were thinking and where you were in your evolution. And now I'm talking with you. I feel like you being an empath, like you being, I don't want to put words on you as you haven't said for yourself, but you seem to be someone who's open to energy. You seem to be someone who's open to people. You seem to have a curiosity. And so I'm wondering, were you drawing upon that in the different scenes that you had to show, to emote? Because for me, that was the most powerful part of your performance.
I mean,
but the things you weren't saying.
Thank you for that, because that was the scariest thing going in. It was a very, I love acting, but sometimes it's harder than other times. And knowing, first of all, because we're shooting out of sequence, being able to chronicle, and that's quite mechanical, like how out of it I am. I walked through a door in February and I came through the other side of the door in July. And I needed to chronicle his deterioration over the week, his mental health, and how many drugs he'd taken. Have I taken 3 pills? Was it 2 hours before? If I just had a phone call where I was quite articulate, I couldn't suddenly be out of it. And that's quite mechanical. And then you have to forget that and get yourself into the emotional state with very few words. So I was worried when I was offered the job that I would not be able to communicate to the audience. My job is not to talk to the audience, it's to try and make something truthful. But there's another level which I hope the audience is getting what's going on with me, because clearly I'm thinking, it calibrates. Initially he's thinking, geez, this is going to be a problem that's going to cost me a lot of money. Then he's thinking, oh my God, I have to throw lawyers at this. Then he's thinking, wow, I'm going to not be able to work in the financial industry. But he's still got a fortune, he's still got trust funds. And then bit by bit, with Mike, we worked on some of this together. It becomes clear that everything that he has, everything that he was, everything he's ever thought of himself as being, his relationship with the town, with the financial world, and then with his family is gone, is shattered. And the implications of that, him not being able to fix that problem, and then his inability to find a solution, where he's always been able to throw money at a problem or lawyers at a problem, that so much so that his world collapses, and he's, for the first time in his life, looks at himself and goes, what am I? Who have I become? Who are these people I've raised? And I'd rather die. And how am I going to kill myself? And actually, seems like my family would rather die. I'd be doing them a mercy killing to get myself into those states, but to make sure I did it like you said, shooting a little bit in March and a little bit in August when those bits are meant to join together like a jigsaw was it was tougher than I've done before. And I called Mike initially and I went, I don't know how to do this without words. I know in episode 8 I've got this extraordinary thing to get myself into a place where I think the best thing for everyone concerned is to kill them, these people that I love, and I need to believe it if you're going to believe it when the camera's on me. But before that, I've got 5 or 6 episodes mostly trying to obliterate my thoughts and failing. Yeah. So the thoughts are coming to the fore anyway, but without telling anyone any of this stuff. So it was tricky. It was a harder thing than I've done often. It was.
I want to say you pulled it off because in some of the scenes it came off like there needed to be a numbness of your brain for me when I was looking at it.
I'm trying to numb it and failing. That's what I'm trying to do. The drugs do numb you, but if I'd just been the guy falling asleep, it would have been pretty dull.
But what's interesting, though, was I think, I can't speak for everyone in them who's listening to the show, the moment of a hangover, right? Mm-hmm. Like, there is this fogginess you feel, like, the next morning. Sure. And I thought you always did a great job in every scene when it was, like, the morning after, where, like, this fog existed, right? And then it's like, then how do you take the next dosage that you need to try and
so I was a drug addict for a long time in real life. And I remember that feeling for almost 20 years of not wanting the world to come into focus. Like when I felt it coming into sharper focus, it terrified me because I'd been away from it for so long. I mean, I don't know why people are drug addicts. I don't know why I was, and this isn't a therapy session. And even if it was, I'm not sure that I have an accurate knowledge of it. And thank God I'm not anymore. But the point is, I do remember strongly that feeling of, I'm coming to the surface of what, I'm going to see the world, and I don't want to. So for Tim, who has far worse things to face than I was facing, so you're right, he's having a hangover, give me another pill, because I'm beginning to think clearly again. And when I start to think clearly, all I can think is my life is destroyed. And everyone's the shame, the crippling shame, and what are my family going to think, how they're going to cope, what are they going to think of me? He just wants to be out of focus all the time. Mm-hmm. But the great drama of it is that the pills are not working. Yeah. If only they made him relax and feel good. Mm-hmm. My brother's a psychiatrist. I said to him, hey, what happens if you chug lorazepam all day? He goes, well, you're asleep. And I went, okay, well, that's not great television. Yeah. What happens if you're not asleep? He went, well, you're falling asleep. I went, give me a third option. And he goes, well, you don't really care about anything. Okay, you've been useless. Yeah. Thanks very much. But what I was trying to do was like those people, I've known a couple who go to South America to take ayahuasca. They're looking for some enlightenment. Yeah. And actually, it goes horribly wrong because their life is going badly at the time is why they've gone down there. And instead of it being a help, it's like the worst thing they have this kaleidoscopic nightmare. They have a bad trip. Yeah. And I just wanted him to be failing to obliterate himself all the time and continuing for things to get worse in his head all the time.
Well, I'm going to even go further and say how I had no previous knowledge of your previous drug addiction that you had. And I think that's why the acting...
You've clearly not read every article I've ever written in my entire life. No. My God, do your research, man.
My audience knows I love to discover my subjects, and so I don't like to do a lot of research ahead of time. I
mostly lie in interviews anyway, so I wouldn't bother reading.
It's perfect. But I just think that you were drawing... I knew you just draw... I felt like you were drawing upon something, right? So I'm like, it was so good and natural. And since we're here, and since we've already crossed the line of inappropriate things to say, and I'm completely being vulnerable, it's not even about me. It's supposed to be about my subjects. But your performance was so well with this fog of every day, right? It was to the point where I actually wanted you to just go on and fulfill the mission of suicide, right?
Sure.
And I think that's a testament to the acting and then now the writing, right? Like, I just felt like you were in such agony, right? There is that human condition that.
But the vanity of it, the narcissism, the agony is. But I am my reputation. Yeah. I am my wealth. I am my privilege. I am the distance between me and human beings. And when he goes to see the monk, and the monk says, you know what, when you die, and he says, what happens when you die? And he goes, you return to the water. And for a minute there, he thinks, God, wouldn't that be great? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be amazing if I don't have to be better than everyone else and maintain that distance? Now, in that moment, it's because it gives him license to kill himself and maybe members of his family. But later, when he has this moment when he nearly accidentally kills Lachlan, the one kid he thought he could save who'll be okay, he realizes, he reaches for the light. And he goes, you know what's going to be right? He embraces fate. Yeah. And he goes, it's okay. And he looks at these people who think they can't cope, and he's going to cope, and they are going to cope, and they're not going to be better than other people, and that is their fate. And actually, there's a humility in that, which is what they should have had their whole lives. Yeah. And the gift he's giving them is that they are no longer going to have to live the life he did, where he had to maintain this distance between him and be above and better than everyone, and the stress of that. He was never even aware that it was a stress. So there's some real spiritual beauty in that, which is why when people talked about, I read everything online. I'm an idiot for that reason. But when people want Mike White to repeat himself, they're not understanding his growth as an artist and his ambition as an artist. Like, he's not making season 1 again, and he's not making season 2, which is about sex, and he went to Thailand for a reason.
Yeah.
He gives people the funny stuff, he gives people the dramatic stuff, and he gives people the spiritual stuff this time. I think he's really even outdone himself.
He did. I think even there's a larger discourse to be had, and there's not enough time to unpack it here, but I'd love to have you come back just to shoot the shit. But I think there's this moderating of conversations about humanity that comes out a lot in this. And the reason why I love these characters this season is because I feel like every character had this humanity that we've all experienced. And every human we don't go through good experiences every day. Like, we're not these Puritans,
well, life is about suffering as well, and loss and grief. That's as much as life is joy.
And in part of the suicide thing, I think that I was coming to my mind is those difficult moments when families have to make that decision when the loved one is on life support, right? It's like, what do we do, right? Like, do you want them to continue to suffer, or is it better for them to be put out of their misery, right? And I think that's what I was trying to reconcile in watching your character every weekend is like, do I continuously watch Tim suffer, or does Tim need permission just to let go?
But if he'd killed himself and not killed the other members of his family, and I'd have Tim's thoughts all the time. And people go, what is he thinking there? He's thinking a million things. That's why he's trying to stop them thinking. But one of the thoughts he has at some point is, if I kill myself, what am I leaving them? How are they going to, what's their life going to be?
Yeah.
Yes, he kills himself because he can't bear the thought of them dealing with him and the whole world dealing with him not being this great iconic character who's got a wing named after him, a duke, and the statues to his relatives and stuff. But also, it's a selfish act. It's an aggressive act, suicide, as well as an utterly tragic one, a desperate one. And that's why he starts to rope them into it. Victoria, his wife, goes, I can't cope. And I'm glad he didn't kill himself. I think I was thrilled to have this. Because when I was reading it, I thought that was going to happen.
Yeah.
And that he has this spiritual enlightenment is such a powerful message. That, we are not the things we have, and we are not what people think of us.
I love that. And I know I can't keep you, but this is my final. And this is the only true question I had for you. And
so this has all been bullshit.
Well,
everything. This is just a lead up. The whole thing, you've just been fluffing me. Okay, here we go.
Literally fluffing you.
Okay, thanks very much. Yeah.
Now introduce my next professional segue off of fluff.
I should have gone for another verb, but anyway, go on.
Insert sex in full frontal nudity. I actually like when sex and full frontal nudity are used in a film or a story for purpose of telling the story versus for shock value. And one thing I have noticed about this social conversation is about your full frontal nudity of your penis. But in my mind, I'm just curious how you approach and were thinking about this scene.
The best way to think or talk about that? Sorry, go on. You finish. Go on.
Yeah, was that I felt like it had nothing to do with the actual act of that your penis was revealed, as much as it was about you were so numb to what was the world crashing around you that you didn't even notice that you were being revealed.
Sure. I don't think of it as sexual and real nudity. There's a big debate online.
I didn't get sexuality from
not wearing a prosthetic. I'm like,
no, I don't want to ask that.
No, I'm saying this is a man at the lowest ebb, and Mike makes a comic moment out of a terrible tragedy. This is a guy thinking of killing himself. And there was a week during the 8 weeks publicity when it all became rather kind of smutty and sniggery, and people were saying to me, I need to know if it's a prosthetic. And I was going, I need to talk about a man who's falling apart, and I don't want the conversation to be hijacked by those other talks. And I remember the actor who talked a lot about wearing a prosthetic in season 2, and he's a wonderful actor, played a complicated part. That's all he ever talked about. So I decided to kick that at a touch and not have that discussion. But I think what Mike's doing is just telling human stories. He's not trying to be sniggery. He's not trying to be funny. It's not that, I don't remember that reality show where it was all these people naked in Florida selling property and stuff like that. And when the conversation gets hijacked from his brilliance, his kind of human stories into who is or isn't naked and whether they are or aren't wearing prosthetics, I felt like it was doing such a disservice to him. I decided I wasn't going to talk about it.
Great, but but I hope you know my question wasn't.
No, I don't mind. It's a question people ask because it allows me to give that answer.
No, but it wasn't about the prosthetic. No,
I know you weren't asking about that, but I think
mine was about the idea that Tim was so Tim's world was crashing around him, and I think audience, we can all relate to this. Like if your fly is down, like if something is being revealed.
Both a gag from Mike,
Yeah.
but a gag with so many different layers. It was a gag and tragic at the same time. And the fact that he's had some naked men in the seasons over a while shouldn't be that much of a topic. He's trying to do some good work and reverse the tide of women having been gratuitously naked in scenes that didn't justify it for forever, since the beginning of people pointing cameras at people. And on his behalf, he doesn't mind at all. He likes anyone talking about anything because he's running this fabulous, populous TV show. I get overly protective for him, and I go, you know what? I don't like when the conversation veers away from the brilliance of this storytelling across, all these different levels that he's telling it, because it seems to undermine this rather fantastic. I mean, I've never been in a show that had so many people discussing so many things and recognizing themselves in friendships or thinking about more existential things, Yeah, it bothered me that it became kind of schoolyard chat for a while, and I was thrilled when, by the next episode, we moved on talking about other things.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that had to happen to you.
No,
I thought that...
I'm fine with it.
Yeah,
I'm
of
just
course,
saying,
But for me, the scene
scene
was about the brilliance of... Really what I was getting at was the brilliance of your performance aspect of it, because I didn't get anything sexual from that.
That's not, it's not emotional. It doesn't take... I mean, a lot of the part was very difficult for me, to get myself... Opening a robe is not as difficult as wanting to kill yourself as an actor,
and that's the point. That's what my takeaway was that, right? And the power of that scene was just how big of a moment of his life crisis that the character Tim was going through. That they
don't notice. What I liked is, what Mike managed so brilliantly in the edit, because I gave him every color when we were shooting every scene because I trust him so much, is it was a very fine line, because I could have gone much funnier with being out of my head all the time. He could have been such a klutz, and he could have said these dumb things. Mike lets you improvise on it, but the family weren't meant to notice. That's how self-involved everybody is. They don't. The audience notices, but the family didn't notice what was going on with Dad, and so it kept me within these parameters that felt a bit like a restriction. But as you know, creativity flourishes within parameters. Yeah. So Mike did that rather brilliantly, I think.
Jason Isaacs, I gotta let you go, but it is always a pleasure being in conversation with you. It's always a good time.
I just saved you $300 on therapy.
You did. Yeah. Thank you.
And me.
Yeah. I appreciate. I'll Zelle you or Venmo you. Audience, just please make sure you tune into all things Jason Isaacs and what.
Well, thanks, because I've got a couple of indies coming out that are not as high profile as.
Would you please come back so we can talk about it?
I absolutely will. Careful what you wish for.
Yeah, sure. I don't care what you're doing. You got to come back, Jason, because you're always a good conversation. And congratulations on everything, man. Your acting is phenomenal.
I was very lucky to be a part of something as special as that. So
Until next time, folks. Peace.